Have you ever asked yourself if your obsession with perfection is really a sign of strength? Or could it secretly be a prison? Behind the almost virtuous glow of perfectionism hides one of the most unsettling truths about human psychology. It isn't discipline, it isn't excellence, it's fear. Not the obvious fear of failure as most believe, but something far more terrifying. The fear of discovering your own power. Think about it. Society constantly celebrates perfectionists. We admire the meticulous student who never turns in sloppy work, the professional who obsesses over details, the artist who spends years polishing a single masterpiece. The world applauds this relentless pursuit, calling it dedication, discipline, or even morality. But what if that admiration is misplaced? What if perfectionism is not a noble pursuit at all, but rather a sophisticated disguise? A mask that hides an unconscious strategy of self-sabotage. Carl Jung, the Swiss psychiatrist who dared to explore the deepest layers of the human psyche, saw through this illusion. For him, perfectionism was rarely a virtue. It was the persona, an artificial mask we create to present to the world, hiding the terrifying magnitude of our true potential. Behind the polished surface, the perfectionist isn't strong. They're paralyzed, trapped by the fear of becoming what they secretly know they could be. Now picture someone who dreams of writing a book, launching a business, or finally stepping into a new life. They study endlessly, they plan, they polish, they prepare, but they never act. The excuse? It's not ready yet. The truth? Perfectionism is not about quality, it's about fear. Fear of being judged, fear of exposure, and most of all, fear of success. Because success carries with it a devastating realization. I could have been much greater, much earlier. If this is already striking a nerve, don't ignore it. Hit subscribe right now and stay with me, because this journey will reveal a shocking truth. Perfectionism isn't freedom. It's the most beautiful of prisons, a golden cage that keeps you safe, admired, but powerless. So let me ask you, what are you really afraid of? Failure, or the heavy weight of your own greatness? Could it be that by clinging to perfection, you are avoiding the most dangerous question of all? What am I truly capable of? If perfectionism isn't really about excellence, then what is it hiding? Jung believed that the human mind creates masks, what he called personas, to protect us from the world, and often from ourselves. The persona is the polished image we present to others. Disciplined, responsible, admirable. But behind this mask lies something far more fragile. For the perfectionist, the mask becomes almost sacred. They need the world to see them as meticulous, tireless, demanding of themselves. The flawless image functions as a shield, yet every shield hides a shadow. And Jung's concept of the shadow is where perfectionism reveals its true face. The shadow is the unconscious side of the psyche, the place where everything we deny, repress, or fear is buried. Most people assume it only contains our flaws, our anger, jealousy, selfishness. But Jung went further. He argued that the shadow also contains our hidden greatness, our talents, creativity, boldness, and power. In other words, perfectionists are not only hiding from failure, they are hiding from success. Think about someone who dreams of starting their own business. Outwardly, their excuse sounds noble. They say they need more preparation, more savings, more knowledge, more time. Society admires their caution, but beneath the surface, something deeper is at play. What if their delay isn't about readiness at all? What if it's about terror? The terror of actually succeeding. The terror of stepping into a bigger life they secretly know they're capable of but feel unprepared to handle. This is the paradox of perfectionism. On the surface, it looks like discipline, But beneath it is fear in disguise. Fear of judgment, fear of responsibility, fear of the radical change that comes with embracing one's true potential. Perfectionism becomes the perfect alibi. You look busy, you look dedicated, but in truth you are paralyzed. And in that paralysis, you never have to face the most frightening revelation of all, that you are far more powerful than you allow yourself to believe. So ask yourself, is your endless pursuit of perfection really about high standards? Or is it a mask protecting you from the unbearable weight of your own greatness? Perfectionism creates an illusion of progress. To the outside world, the perfectionist seems busy, committed, always refining. But in reality, they are caught in what Jung would call a state of elegant paralysis. They appear to move, yet they remain stuck in place. Every new plan, every draft, every adjustment feels like progress. But it is only motion without movement. Think of the person who spends years preparing to launch a project. Their notebooks are full, their research impeccable, their vision detailed. And yet nothing ever reaches the world. Why? Because there is always one more flaw to fix, one more angle to consider, one more piece of knowledge to acquire. On the surface, it looks like diligence, but beneath it, the truth is haunting. Perfectionism is not protecting them from failure. It is protecting them from discovery. Discovery of what they could have achieved long ago, if only they had dared to start. Jung warned us about this inner trap. He argued that when the psyche withholds action, the energy that should flow outward into creation, expression, transformation, turns inward. Instead of becoming art, business, or achievement, it mutates into anxiety, self-criticism, and existential frustration. That is why the perfectionist often feels exhausted without having produced anything concrete. They live in a constant cycle of doing, redoing, refining, and postponing. The mask is impeccable, but the soul is suffocating. And here lies the real terror. Because to finally act, to step into one's power, means facing the painful truth. All that time, all those years of delay were wasted. That is an unbearable thought for many, so they hide behind the shield of perfectionism. It is far easier to say, "I'm not ready yet," than to admit, "I'm afraid of who I might become." So what about you? Are you really working toward your dreams? Or are you trapped in elegant paralysis? Is your perfectionism a path to mastery, or the very wall keeping you from the life you secretly long for? To understand why perfectionism traps so many people, we need to descend into one of Jung's most unsettling ideas, the shadow. The shadow is everything within us that we reject, deny, or repress. Most people imagine it as a dark container of flaws, anger, envy, weakness, shame. But Jung saw deeper. He revealed that the shadow also holds the very things we most need: our hidden talents, our wild creativity, our unclaimed power. For the perfectionist, this creates a cruel paradox. Outwardly, their persona, the mask they show to the world, is flawless. They appear meticulous, reliable, tireless in their pursuit of excellence. But inside, in the shadow, lies the truth they fear most. They are not only afraid of mistakes, they are afraid of success. They are afraid of standing in their own brilliance and facing the weight of what that brilliance demands. Think about it. Success doesn't just bring applause. It brings responsibility, brings exposure. It forces you to admit how much time you have lost hiding behind the excuse of not being ready. For many, this realization is unbearable. So the psyche creates an elegant defense: perfectionism. If you are endlessly polishing, you never have to launch. If you are always preparing, you never have to face the shadow of your own greatness. Jung warned that whatever is repressed in the shadow never disappears, it grows. It leaks into our lives in strange ways. Anxiety, procrastination, self-sabotage, even failed relationships. Perfectionism, then, isn't just an annoying habit. It's a psychological defense mechanism designed to keep us from confronting the most dangerous truth of all. We are capable of far more than we dare to admit. So ask yourself, what lives in your shadow? Is it fear? Yes, but is it also greatness? Could it be that your perfectionism isn't protecting you from failure, but from the terrifying possibility of becoming who you truly are? From the outside, perfectionism looks like a virtue. People associate it with discipline, high standards, and commitment to excellence. But behind the polished mask lies a devastating psychological cost, one that Jung understood with startling clarity. He warned that everything repressed in the psyche eventually takes its toll. And for the perfectionist, the toll is heavy: anxiety, paralysis, guilt, and a gnawing sense of living far below one's true potential. One of the greatest traps of perfectionism is the illusion of being almost ready. The perfectionist always feels one step away from beginning, launching or exposing themselves to the world. The manuscript is almost perfect. The plan is almost solid. The timing is almost right. But that almost never ends. This endless waiting drains vital energy. Jung described this condition as psychic stagnation. The energy that should be used for creation, action, and transformation gets trapped in a whirlpool of hesitation. That's why perfectionists often feel exhausted without ever producing anything real. There's also the relentless self-criticism. Every tiny mistake, every imagined flaw becomes proof of inadequacy. To the perfectionist, failure isn't feedback, it's catastrophe. And this creates a life lived in constant fear of being unmasked, as if at any moment the world will discover that their flawless image is a lie. Jung pointed out that when the ego becomes too attached to the persona, it cannot tolerate imperfection. Each slip feels like an existential threat. At first, it sounds absurd. How could anyone be afraid of their own power? Don't we all claim to want strength, success, and the ability to transform our lives? Yet Jung warned that one of the deepest and most paralyzing fears of the human psyche is not failure. It is success. Because success demands something terrifying: responsibility. Think about it. To embrace your own power means admitting you could have gone further, done more, and lived bolder long before now. That realization can be crushing. It forces you to confront wasted years and missed opportunities. It forces you to accept that you are not as powerless as you pretended to be. For many, this is more painful than failure itself. Jung described this as the clash between the ego and the self. The ego, the conscious identity, wants comfort, safety, control. But the self, the deeper core of the psyche, demands growth, expansion, and individuation. Answering the call of the self means stepping into your full uniqueness, abandoning fragile masks, and confronting the unknown. And this is why perfectionism feels safer. By staying not ready, you avoid the call. By hiding behind details, you escape the demand of your own greatness. Society complicates this fear even further. On the surface, we say we admire success and genius. But in reality, those who shine too brightly often face envy, pressure, and impossible expectations. To step fully into your power means exposing yourself, not only to applause, but to judgment, resentment, and scrutiny. Many perfectionists unconsciously decide that staying small is easier than facing the storm that comes with standing tall. This is the hidden function of perfectionism. It shields you from the unbearable truth. Once you know what you are capable of, you can never go back. There are no more excuses, no more hiding. You must live up to it, and for many that weight is far scarier than failure could ever be. So here is the question Jung forces us to ask. Are you really afraid of falling short? Or are you terrified of rising higher than you ever imagined? Jung insisted that the shadow is not just a storage of flaws or shameful impulses. It is also a reservoir of power. Within it live our most repressed potentials, the abilities and desires we once judged as too much for the world or too dangerous for the fragile structure of our ego. And this is where perfectionism becomes a masterful disguise. By obsessing over the appearance of flawlessness, the perfectionist avoids ever having to meet the overwhelming force hidden in the shadow. Think of the writer who never publishes, the musician who never performs, the visionary who never dares to launch their idea. Outwardly, they claim high standards. It isn't ready yet, but in truth something deeper is at play. Their shadow contains not just fear of mistakes, but also the blazing fire of success, creativity, and influence. And to release that power would mean exposing themselves to a new life, a life that would demand courage, risk, and visibility. Jung believed that what is repressed does not vanish. It grows stronger in the unconscious and exerts influence in subtle, destructive ways. For the perfectionist, this often manifests as chronic anxiety, obsessive worry, procrastination, or a constant sense of dissatisfaction. Their shadow whispers, "You are meant for more." But instead of listening, they silence it with endless refinement. Here lies the paradox. The perfectionist believes they are in control. In reality, they are controlled by the very shadow they refuse to face. Each "not yet," each revision, each excuse is not proof of caution but evidence of fear. The fear of unleashing their true potential. So the critical question becomes, what if the greatness you're hiding from is not only possible, but already waiting inside you? What if your perfectionism is not keeping you safe, but instead keeping the door locked on the very force that could transform your life? From the outside, the perfectionist looks admirable. They appear disciplined, responsible, endlessly striving for excellence. But inside, the cost is crushing. Jung warned that the greatest suffering is not living a difficult life, but living a life that is not truly yours. And this is the hidden tragedy of perfectionism. It traps people in a golden cage, where they may appear successful but feel secretly hollow. Perfectionists often live in a constant state of anxiety. Every mistake becomes a catastrophe. Every imperfection a personal failure. Their identity is so entangled with the persona, the flawless mask, that even the smallest crack feels like the end of the world. Instead of viewing mistakes as stepping stones, they experience them as proof that they are unworthy. Over time, this relentless self-criticism erodes confidence and breeds a deep sense of inadequacy. But the wound goes even deeper. Perfectionism robs people of presence. They spend their lives in preparation mode, always waiting for the right moment, which never arrives. Years pass. Opportunities fade. Dreams remain on paper. And the cruelest realization comes not in failure, but in the haunting awareness that nothing was ever truly lived. This is the existential cost Jung spoke of. The anguish of knowing you could have been more, but chose to remain small. Relationships also suffer under the weight of perfectionism. Those who demand perfection from themselves often project the same impossible standards onto others. Partners, colleagues, friends, all become subject to an invisible measuring stick. This creates distance, conflict, and loneliness. After all, no one, Not even the perfectionist can live up to such rigid expectations. So while perfectionism may look like virtue, it often leaves behind a trail of exhaustion, unfulfilled dreams, and quiet despair. It is not a path to freedom, but a beautifully decorated prison. And the longer you stay inside, the heavier the cost becomes, not just for your achievements, but for your very sense of self. But perhaps the most haunting cost is existential. Jung argued that nothing causes greater suffering than living below one's potential. The perfectionist may gain recognition, may even appear successful, but deep down they carry a painful emptiness. The knowledge that they could have been more. They sense the wasted years, the dreams deferred, the opportunities missed. And rather than face that truth, they double down on the cycle of not yet. Always preparing, never beginning. So here is the paradox. Perfectionism seems noble, but it is often just fear in disguise. Fear that keeps you anxious, unfulfilled, and forever almost ready. And the longer you stay trapped, the more your shadow grows restless. For Jung, perfectionism was not a moral flaw, but a defense. A shield built by the psyche to protect the ego from what it is not yet ready to face. But he also warned that if this defense hardens, it becomes a prison. And the key to escape lies in the process he called individuation. The journey of becoming whole, of integrating not only the polished parts of ourselves, but also the shadow we fear. Individuation does not mean eliminating the shadow or destroying perfectionism. It means transforming them. The very energy that once paralyzed can, when brought into awareness, become fuel for authentic life. The drive for excellence, for example, is not inherently toxic. It can be a powerful force when freed from the chains of fear. But when excellence turns into obsession with flawlessness, it strangles action. Jung believed the task was not to reject this force, but to bend it, to redirect it into creation, rather than paralysis. The first step is courage, the willingness to look at the shadow and ask, what am I avoiding by demanding perfection? For many, the answer is devastating. They are avoiding the truth of their own greatness, the responsibility of their talents, the weight of their power. But facing this truth is the only way forward. The second step is acceptance, embracing imperfection as part of growth. Jung insisted that creativity lives in the realm of mistakes, drafts, and failures. Those who wait to be flawless before acting will never act. Freedom begins the moment you accept that your first attempt will be imperfect, and that is exactly how it should be. The third step is integration, allowing the parts of yourself you once rejected to re-enter your life. This means letting your shadow speak, listening to its hidden desires, and reclaiming the strengths you buried. Only then can you begin to live as a whole person, not as a mask. So the path to freedom is not about becoming perfect. It is about becoming real. Jung reminds us that true wholeness is found not in flawlessness, but in the raw, imperfect act of daring to live. We have traveled deep into the labyrinth of perfectionism, uncovering its shining mask, its shadowed roots, and its devastating cost. Jung showed us that what looks like discipline or virtue is often fear in disguise. The perfectionist hides not from flaws, but from greatness, building a flawless facade to escape the unbearable weight of their own potential. And while the world may applaud the mask, the soul remains trapped. But here is the liberating truth. What imprisons you can also free you. The same energy you spend polishing, delaying, and hiding can be transformed into creativity, courage, and authentic expression. Jung called this individuation, the process of reclaiming the parts of yourself you've buried. including your power. It does not mean destroying perfectionism or forcing yourself into mediocrity. It means learning to live in imperfection, where true freedom and originality exist. Every imperfect step you take breaks a piece of the golden cage. Every risk, every draft, every bold attempt tears down the illusion that you must be flawless before you are worthy. The shadow loses its grip the moment you shine a light on it, and the life you were meant to live begins the moment you dare to act, imperfectly but authentically. If this message resonates with you, don't let it end here. Subscribe to the channel, share this video with someone who needs to hear it, and leave a comment below. What dream have you been hiding behind perfection? Writing it down is your first step toward breaking free. Because in the end, perfectionism is not the path to greatness. It is the most beautiful prison of all. And here is the choice Jung leaves us with. Remain safe in the cage, or step into the frightening, exhilarating light of your own power. The question is not whether you are capable. It is whether you have the courage to finally become who you are.